everyone, I'm Dr. Ginette with the Holistic Chiropractic and Wellness Center, and I'd like to welcome you to our Neurotherapy webinar. It is a brain-based training webinar, so let's just jump right in. So my goal today is to share some valuable information on brain-based care. I would like for it to be more widely understood, whether you choose to work with me or not. I am not going to sell you anything during this time, but at the end, I'll promise you to share with you how you can work with me if you'd like to do so. So my goal is for you to have a better understanding of how your brain works. I'd also like to share with you how QEEG can help uncover the root cause of some of your symptoms. I would like for you to know that there is still hope for natural healing without guesswork, without medication, and without having invasive procedures done. Know that there's hope and that your brain is not broken, that your brain can rewire itself, and your brain just might need some support to better function. Your brain can heal. The power is in your hands for you to reclaim control over your health, over your brain, over your body, mind, and soul, for yourself as well as for maybe a loved one that you know. And I will also have a special offer for you at the end, so stick around. Let's go in. So you might be here today for different reasons, and maybe you are tired of guessing what's wrong. Maybe your symptoms keep returning without having a clear answer of what's going on. Maybe you've tried different treatments and they haven't lasted, or maybe they weren't profound enough. Maybe you are on medication and you are looking to either reduce your medication, titrate down, maybe you're looking to cut it out, or maybe you're having issues with some possible side effects that happen with medications. And maybe you're someone who's seeking a natural, holistic approach and you want to get to the root cause and you are looking for some real healing. Either way, I welcome you here, and let's see if we can find you some answers. So you will see my loved one. My main love is on the left, but I'm just kidding. My love, they are both my loves. That is my dog Mocha and my husband on the right side. And they are why I get out of bed in the morning and do what I do, so I can make the world better for my community, for them, for myself. And I say for myself because most chiropractors, and I'll say even most healers, are healing themselves through different therapies, and they find solutions for themselves, and now they want to share it with the world so that we can make the world a better place. So a little bit of my background is I'm a chiropractor now over finishing up my second decade, and I have a passion for helping my patients really feel and function their best. I've always been drawn to really understand the nervous system, and the nervous system, since it controls everything, it just made sense to take care of the brain part of it. So I've added different kinds of therapies into my care as the decades have gone along. And so I love working with animals, obviously with my second love, Mocha. I love working with animals, so I'm an animal chiropractor as well. I love working with kids and with seniors, all different kinds of ages, and I've just kept learning along the way. And so it just made sense to take care of the brain, because as a chiropractor, working with people's spines and nervous system, and the brain is part of that. So it just made sense to really take care of that organ in various ways. And so I've learned different techniques, and one that I really love is QNRT. This one helps to release stored trauma and stress in the spine and nervous system. And that's a little picture of me on the right in my younger age, gone to learn some techniques on QNRT. So that's the emotional work that I do. As well as that picture here in the middle where it says Neurofield. I went to California to do some training with them on learning neurotherapy, so specifically brain training. And what has happened over the decades is the more tools that I have in my pocket to help heal the mind, the body, the brain, the more complete I can offer care to my patients. And as a lifelong learner, it allows me to learn more tools to help myself, help those loved ones around me, whether my family, as well as my community. And so I want to just thank you for taking the time to um, spend some time with me today to learn more about brain and spinal health. So here we go. So you might be wondering, who's this chiropractor, and do you even need a license to do neurotherapy, brain training? And the short answer is no. However, for your safety, it would be um, the best recommendation is to work with a provider who's credentialed, and who's a health professional, to make sure that the work is done properly for you. So I am board certified in neurofeedback through the BCIA. That is an international professional organization that helps to certify practitioners around the world. And to learn more about it, you can click on their website. So short answer is no, but at the end, you want someone who's trained and ready to do and able to do this work in a safe manner for you. So I'd like for you to do a simple exercise just to better understand brain function. And so I'm going to show a small video, a short little video, and I won't talk during the video. And what you want to do is it's going to show different words on the page, and you want to say out loud the color of the ink, not the word. So as an example, you should say red when you see this word blue. You have to override the blue part and read red. As another example, you're going to read pink on this second word called green. So let's try this exercise. So if you did this test, ask yourself, how did that feel? Your brain had to override the automatic want to read the word, which is primarily a left brain activity, and instead you have to focus on the color, which is more of a right brain activity. And so I share this example. I have you experience this so that you can just feel what a mental drag or delay or what an internal conflict that feels, where there's a bit of a miscommunication and you really have to think hard to do the exercise. If your brain is really feeling overactive, or possibly underactive or not well connected, this is what it might feel like. And there's work that we can do to help balance out the brain so it can function better. So I want to offer you a new way to think about brain as well as mental health. And if I give the analogy of your car breaks down tomorrow, you wouldn't want the mechanic to fix the car without first looking under the hood or looking under the car to see what's the problem and how do I fix this. It just wouldn't make sense. Yet when it comes to brain or mental health, we often skip this crucial step. And instead of checking how the brain is actually working or functioning, we rely just solely on symptoms alone. And in almost every other area of healthcare, the organ of question is always analyzed, assessed from MRIs and blood work. And if you have a kidney issue, we're going to do an ultrasound. We always take a look to see how's that organ working. But when it comes to brain health or mental health, it's rare that we actually look at the brain itself. And it's a way of really just only assessing symptoms, but there's so much more that you can assess when it comes to brain health. And that comes down to what's called QEEG, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So instead of guessing how is your brain functioning, we can actually do a measurable test to see how it's working or not working. So when it comes to brain health, it really goes beyond avoiding just disease. It's really how is the brain feeling and functioning your best. And because you are living your life through your brain, as information is coming in through your eyes, through your ears, through your taste buds, through your smell, all these different senses, you're really living your life through your brain. And your brain is going to control everything else in your body, hence your health. And there are key factors that are important when it comes to brain health, not just how's your brain functioning, but other key factors that are going to help support brain health, which is looking at your sleep, your diet, as well as exercise. And that's important when I work with a patient, is if you want the best healing possible for brain and body, you have to look at the multiple variables that will improve health or diminish it. We want to look at how is your brain, which is your control center, how is it interpreting your life? And if it's dysregulated, it's like looking at the world through foggy glasses, and you're not seeing it clearly for what it really is. You're seeing it in a distorted way. And the way that we look to see how is your brain functioning, we look at what's called brain waves. And your brain waves is really telling a story of how your brain is functioning. And then we can assess the story of your brain and then how to help it. So how do we read your brain story? So we have 5 primary brain waves, and we can assess those brain waves, and it's looking at almost like a code of communication. These 5 brain waves each have a different role, whether you be focusing on something, whether you're resting, sleeping, or processing information. Each brain wave will have a certain function and a certain area in the brain that it should live in as well. Each brain wave will reveal how your brain is in balance or not balanced. And then we also can assess the brain waves and then assess your brain story. Think of the brain waves are like reading the brain's language. You can't talk to the brain in words, but we'll look at the code, and the code is looking at your brain waves. So looking at your brain story, these brain waves, these are the 5 brain waves. So if we look at the bottom, we'll look at delta. These are the slower brain waves, primarily done during sleep, restoration, and then from there, that's usually we'll call it 0 to 4 hertz. Hertz is how the frequency is going. So you can see these are really large waves, and they're very slower compared to the top ones. We'll look at theta, alpha, beta, and gamma, and we'll look at each one quickly to see how they work into your brain story. So if we look at delta, which is the slowest brain waves, usually it's 0.4 to 1 4 hertz. These are the slower brain waves, and they are dominant during deep dreamless sleep. They're really important during healing, growth, and rejuvenation. It's the primary brain wave that infants and babies will make because their brain is constantly healing and evolving and learning. However, in adults, if you had excessive delta when you're awake, it might be, because it's a slower brain wave, it might show a dysfunction or even damage. So as we look at this example on the right side, this is just a picture of here on the left side. There's 19 channels, there's 19 different areas in the brain that we're measuring the activity, the frequency of it. And I highlighted this one in blue. That would be a delta wave. So if we look at these different little blue lines, there's a line here, a line here, a line here. So in between 2 lines is 1 second of information that we're measuring. So if we look at these frequencies, because they're big and wide it's a slower frequency, and that would be a delta wave. If we look at the next category, which was a little quicker, which would be theta waves, those are 4 to 8 hertz. They're present when you are relaxing, meditating, as well as dreaming. They're active also when you wake up or you're starting to fall asleep, you're starting to produce more theta waves. However, theta waves, when you're awake, it might be a really creative brain wave. It's an intuitive state. So when you're getting some information coming in intuitively, your brain is actually a little bit more in a theta wave. However, if you had too much theta wave, you might be feeling some kind of mental fog, brain fog, or really have a hard time focusing on something, and you might have what we call ADHD-like symptoms if you had too much of it. They are also present in a subconscious activity. They might also reflect unresolved trauma if we're seeing it in an EEG. So here on the right side, if you look at these little boxes, if we were to count the little wavelets, here I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is a 6 hertz brain wave. So this one is running in the theta activity brain wave. The alpha, a little quicker, 8 to 12 hertz. When you're creating alpha waves, you're really in a balanced, calm, as well as still in an alert state. It's linked to being in the brain, in a brain flow. So as an example, let's say when you're just watching a movie and you're kind of zoned out, you're producing a lot of alpha waves. Or if you're driving, it's really automatic. You don't even have to think too much about it. You're going to be producing some alpha waves. If you're at work and you're just in the zone, as we'll say, your brain is producing some alpha frequencies. If you had too much of it, you might feel like you're daydreaming. It might be even ruminative thoughts, or even feel like depressive symptoms. If you had too little of it, you might lack tension. You might be overthinking or having a really hard time relaxing. So in this snippet, we have O1, O2, which are the two channels at the back of the head, and we primarily make alpha there. And if we were to count these frequencies, this one's not quite a 1, but we'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So about a 10 frequency hertz at the back of the head. O1, O2 is very normal. Beta frequencies run between 13 and 30 hertz, and they're much more quick. They're a little bit more spiky. You'll be using them when you're in a focusing or problem solving, really trying to accomplish a task. It's really attentive work. So even right now, you listening to me, you're creating some beta waves because you're really trying to understand the information that's coming in. When you're learning or logically thinking, you're creating some beta frequencies. If we had too much, what we'll call high beta, if you had too much beta, it might feel stressed, overwhelming, anxiety. You might have some really looping thoughts. You might be feeling like you have one too many tabs open in your brain, almost like your computer. You got too many tabs going on. You can't focus on anything. It feels overwhelming. It might be helpful for productivity, but too much can cause overwhelm, panic, and even burnout. So in this snippet, we have, if we look at this, if I put my little bubble just on top of it, you can see they're really, really quick there. And those are beta frequencies. And this is an example of a patient who's on tramadol. So even as I took this picture because as an example, if you are on medication will affect your brain. And this patient is unfortunately addicted to a painkiller called tramadol, and that's causing a lot more beta waves in their brain. And obviously that'll affect how you feel. Gamma is even more quicker than beta. It's the fastest brain wave. It's tied to memory, learning, and higher consciousness. It'll appear when you're having an aha moment. Bursts of gamma are really healthy, but if you had too much, it can really feel even more than stress. It's really feeling overwhelmed, but even past what beta feels like. So in this one, in this little blue zone, you can see really high gamma. This is probably about a 35 hertz, really fast. So some of it is good, but if you had too much of it, it doesn't feel good. So what we want to do is look at the waves, the brain waves, and they act almost like letters of the brain language. And by analyzing them through what we call in QEEG, we can read the story of your brain. What is your brain telling us? It'll help better us understand how is your brain functioning. From there, where's their support needed? So when I look at someone's brain, when I look at their brain, I'm looking almost like at a zoo. So if we go to the zoo and we're looking at different brainwave patterns, as I walk into a zoo, I'm looking at different animals. And I would expect to see the lions in one area and the zebras in another area. If I saw the lions mixed in with the zebras, this would be a huge problem. It means something is off. And that would be a really big red flag. Something is out of place. It can cause some serious problem. And the same goes with your brain. Certain brain waves are expected to be in certain regions of the brain in a certain balance, in a certain amount. When we see that they don't belong in a certain area, or they're at the wrong levels, too much or too little, then it really tells us that something is not functioning well there. And it may be contributing to the symptoms that you're experiencing. So how do we assess your brain waves? We do that through what's called a QEEG. We first do an EEG. So we place, it looks like a swimmer's cap on a patient's head, and you can see the little white spots there. Those are different channels. They're different sensors that are picking up the electrical activity from your brain. Think of your brain almost like creating there are little batteries everywhere, and it's creating an energy, and we can measure the frequency coming off the brain. This is a little picture of the different channels that we measure. This is a 19-channel cap. So this is a non-invasive, painless process to measure the brain waves at specific locations in the brain. We measure it in two different states. We measure when your eyes are open as well as when your eyes are closed. And the reason for that is your brain is doing different things when it's either a little bit more alert or a little bit more quiet. And so we can measure the power, the speed of the electrical emissions coming off of your brain so we can assess its function. So this is a short little video of a 19-channel EEG. So you can see the different, here on the left side, these are the different channels that we're measuring. At the bottom, it's called heart rate. And so we're actually measuring your heart rate as well. We'll get into the brain-heart connection in a moment. So the little squigglies are the different frequencies, and we can see some are quicker and some are slower, and some have a bigger amplitude. They look like bigger bumps, and some have a smaller bump. So we're measuring the different activities at different locations in the brain. This little change in state, it's not even a change in state, sorry, is actually a blink. So we're also measuring what we call extracerebral activities. So when I first take a measurement with a patient, I show them what happens when they blink their eyes, when they move their eyes left and right, whether they scrunch their eyes closed, or they wiggle their eyebrows, or they move their body, because we're going to measure, we want to measure, we want to get a clean, what we call a clean EEG. So we need to remove what's called the artifact. Artifact is whatever is not of the brain. So as we read through the images, as we read through the EEG, we're only going to select the parts that are actually of the brain, and not, like in this case, we would take that out because it's a blink and we don't want to measure blinks. So if I record this, so you can see this is pre-recorded, but you can see the different frequencies that are zooming along. And so we do 8 to 10 minutes of your eyes open, 8 to 10 minutes of your eyes closed. And then once we've done that, then we can produce what are called images. We produce what's called quantitative EEG. We push it through different softwares to analyze the data, because it's one way to measure it through the EEG, what we call a raw EEG, but then we want to analyze it in different platforms, different ways to look at the brain. So we can produce what we call brain maps, as well as different images to really dive deep into your brain to measure how is it functioning. So another way to look at it is when we are assessing someone's EEG, we're looking at the EEG, we're counting the different frequencies, where are they at, how much are they there, where are they located in the brain, and we're looking for patterns. When we can pick up a pattern, we look at the pattern and we look, how does that connect to the patient's symptoms? Does it contribute to the patient's symptoms? We have research, and there are certain patterns, or what we call profiles, that we know a patient who has anxiety, their brain may look like this. Or if a patient has depression, their brain may look like this. Or if they have a hard time focusing on information and completing tasks such as ADHD-like symptoms, they may have a certain pattern or profile. And can we match that up? If yes, then we can help. So when we do an EEG, it's really looking at the objective information of a brain. So as we sit down with a patient, it's important for us to understand their symptoms, and that will give us what we call a subjective information. What is the patient experiencing on their end? When we do the brain analysis, the QEEG, now that's giving us some objective data. How is the brain actually functioning? And the data will help us see, are there patterns, imbalances that can be affecting this patient's symptoms? And then from there, we can better target our treatment. So as we assess someone's brain waves, we always look at the raw EEG, and then we push it through different softwares to look at what we call a quantitative EEG. That's where the Q comes from. So we can look at it in various ways. Once we start seeing certain patterns in the raw, then it's almost like we're diving deeper into the brain, confirming, is this true, what we're seeing in the raw? How is it present in the different brain maps? And then from there, we can look to see where is it coming from, and we'll look at that in a minute. So there's a lot of research that's been done on the brain-heart connection, or the gut-brain connection. So we don't look at just the brain, but we want to look at what the heart is doing. It allows us to see how the nervous system is functioning. You may have heard of vagus nerve, and so we'll look at how we can actually train the vagus nerve. But the vagus nerve is controlling all the different organs in through your abdominal cavity, from your heart right down to your gut. So when we look at what we call the autonomic nervous system, your autonomic nervous system is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is your fight or flight response. So if I'm getting chased by a lion, I need to run away from that lion and save my life. Now, in today's age, we're not running away from the lion, we're running away from, I'll say, things in our life. So many of us are stuck in the fight or flight response from the stress that we have from society, from work, from home, and we're stuck in a sympathetic drive. The parasympathetic tone is your rest, relaxation, your digestion, and I say even more importantly, your healing nervous system. You cannot heal when you're stuck in the sympathetic drive. You need parasympathetic tone to really heal yourself. We need both systems. You need the sympathetic as well as the parasympathetic, but they need to be in balance. So one way that when we assess the patient's brain, we also assess the heart. We look at the heart rate. So if you look at this chart at the bottom right, you're going to see this yellow bar. That's representing the sympathetic part of our nervous system. And the green bar is representing the parasympathetic tone. So here you can see that the yellow is almost 3 times larger than the parasympathetic. So this patient is stuck in a sympathetic drive, sympathetic tone. They are stuck in a fight or flight. You can't heal when you're stuck in fight or flight. So this was a patient who was really stuck in a really high stressful state. Here's an example of being stuck in a highly sympathetic mode. It can lead to chronic stress, or chronic stress will put you in a sympathetic state. It keeps the brain in what I call a survival mode. It is just trying to survive moment to moment. It'll also shut your prefrontal cortex. It'll decrease blood flow going to your organs, and you might have sleep issues, you might have concentration issues, you might have digestion issues, and the list is vast. Over time, this can affect your memory, your learning, decision making, and it can really be impactful for the nervous system. So on the left, this was a picture of a patient before we did some neurotherapy treatments. On the left side, this yellow bar, this patient is stuck in a sympathetic drive. And then after 10 sessions, we can see the balance there between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So that yellow and that green bar are really more balanced. So this patient was reporting feeling calmer and able to relax more. And just think about what that does to the whole brain and body, and how your brain can really heal from that. And it just shows that the brain health is really deeply connected to your nervous system, and it's important to address a brain-body connection. So once we're looking at the different maps that we see, when you see that brain map, it's a very, what I call a flat brain map. We want to dive deep into the brain to see where is it coming from. So if I look at a brain map, there might be a red area up at the frontal lobe, but where is it coming from? Where's the location of that beta brain wave? So think of it like I've got different microphones in a room, and I'm hearing all this sound come through, but I have to locate where is that microphone in the room so I can better target my care. So if I've got a high beta frequency located, we don't know what its location at that time, it's showing up on a brain map. It might be right underneath, but it might be a deeper source. And so we use what's called source localization. We use S-Loretta to really pinpoint where is it coming from the brain. And so certain specific software will allow us to assess this. So the data is run through advanced algorithms to identify the frequency and the true location of that problem. And I call it problem area, or that frequency. If we can know where it's coming from, then we can better target the treatment. So these are different pictures of the brain where we can see where is it located in the brain. In this case here, it's on the left temporal lobe. So on a map, we might see here, but the source is coming from here. So I can target my treatments really specifically to this specific patient. It's really custom work, custom care for that patient. It's really custom. Another word would be targeted interventions based on your brain. Where is the dysfunction happening? Then we can better understand what your brain needs. It allows us to be very precise and to really personalize the intervention and the care to better affect your brain region that needs some support. From there, you'll have really better healing, better functioning of the brain. So this is an example of a patient who had a hard time sleeping as well as managing stress. And they have what we call a deficit in delta. They don't make enough delta. They have hypo delta activity. So when we take the raw EEG, we can divide it and basically categorize it into different bins. We'll call this one a 1 hertz bin, 2 hertz bins, different frequencies. And we can see this one goes up to 10. Obviously, we generate past up to 30, and some software is 40 hertz. But you can see a lot of blue and green. And so on this legend, you can see when we get into the 2s and the 4s, minus 2s and 4s, meaning there's not enough, it means this patient's not making enough delta activity, enough slow activity. And so after 10 sessions, you can see a lot of it has cleared out. And this brain is much more balanced. It's making more delta. And it's important to make more delta because it's important to make delta when you're sleeping. Even when you're awake, you're making delta. And if we're not making enough delta, I call it like this, the brake pedal of your brain. If you're not making enough delta, the brain has a hard time pushing on the brakes, and you can get stuck into a stressful response, ruminative thoughts, almost like a looping feeling of stress. And so this patient, after some treatments, felt more emotionally grounded, was able to self-calm, self-soothe in a better capacity. This is another example of a patient who was feeling a lot of anxiety and overwhelm. And part of that patient's story is that they were making too much beta. Beta is a high frequency, a really fast frequency. So you can see the red at the front of the head here. And then after 10 sessions, we can see a lot. It's blue. It's much more calmer there. We're not making too much of it. This fast brainwave activity can cause a stressful response, can feel like anxiety, sometimes social withdrawal, because it's hard to deal with being in public and in social circumstances if you can't feel calmer. So when we look at a patient's data, there's different ways to look at it. So not only do we look at it through what we call brain maps, but this is also a pre-post measurement. So the pre is the purple line, and then the post is the green line. So this patient, we can see that the amplitude has decreased. There is less beta activity, and we're looking at specific channels. In this patient, FP1 and FP2 are at the front of the head, and F3, F4 right here, and this is the location where there was just too much beta activity. And we can see, it's another way to analyze to see how is this brain changing with care. We can see it really dropping as far as amplitude. And so in this specific case, this patient of mine was reporting a significant reduction in anxiety as well as mood after treatments. This is another example of a patient who had too much beta activity at the frontal leads. We can see down and through here, if we look at 31, 32, 33, up to 40, we can see a lot of redness at the frontal lobe, at the front of the head. And we can see after treatments, you can see that that area is not as red. There's a little bit of yellow. So that means there's definitely less amplitude of beta activity at the front of the head. So this was a 24-year-old who came to see me and to see if I can help her with a lot of the anxiety and almost a worrying loop that she struggled with. When you have too much brain waves, too much beta activity at the frontal leads, you might have a hard time shutting your brain off. It'll be hard to relax and calm and focus on activities. It can also be a profile where patients are having a hard time falling asleep because you can't turn your brain off. We also see this profile of these patterns in patients who have anxiety, might struggle with bipolar, insomnia, or might feel impulsive. So this patient obviously felt reduction of anxiety and better mood, less worry, felt calmer. So it's beautiful. Here's a testimonial of a patient that I worked with. Sylvie was reporting that she suffered from depression and anxiety. I've been on medications in the past for it, so I started my journey into neurotherapy treatments. At the beginning and the end of these sessions, Dr. Ginette takes images of your brainwaves. From these images, she can understand and see where and how she needs to address the individual's concerns. For me, it was clear that where there was activity of a busy brainwave, hence the overwhelming feeling I had been feeling lately. So Dr. Ginette set out to create a protocol that was best suited for me. And by the end of my sessions, the brain mapping showed a significant shift in my brainwaves, which in turn helped me feel so much better and calmed my anxiousness. This technique is a gentle way to help support and heal. And you couldn't have asked for better care from Dr. Ginette. Super sweet. It's super, it's a blessing when patients share their experiences, and I am honored to help them. And this patient, with these changes, it really helps to change your life. It changes your perspective of how you can walk through life. So let's talk about the science behind neurotherapy. you might have heard the word neuroplasticity, and neuroplasticity is when your brain is changing. Your brain can change. The days of thinking, when you're born, within the first couple years of your life, you've got your brain and that's it. That's just not the case. We know that the brain can change, the brain can learn. And so the brain can rewire itself, and we're helping it through this modality, through this technique, to better improve emotional balance, focus, concentration, memory, overall brain and nervous system function. So let's jump into a bit of the meat and potatoes of it. And so neurotherapy is a non-invasive way to train and balance the brain wave. The goal is to improve the brain function. So I use what's called neuromodulation to help balance out the brain. And this can mean breaking up stubborn patterns or improving brain communication. And so the brain can better process and interpret information that's coming in. Neurotherapy will help balance out where there's too much activity or too little activity. So when we're looking at a brain, if there's an area that has too much beta brain waves, which it's too fast, we want to slow it down. Or if another area is too slow, we want to increase that frequency. And I say that the brain is like a mirror. When we give the brain a certain frequency, it will mirror that frequency. It'll start to create that frequency at that brain area. And so we are training the brain to work more efficiently. So one of the therapies that we use is called neurostimulation. So here you can see on this patient, she's got different sensors. They're basically little electrodes, and they are delivering a really low-level electrical impulse to target certain brain waves. This specific modulation, you actually feel it. So you will feel the energy in that area of the brain. Sometimes people will feel a little bit of a warming sensation, a little tingling sensation, a little energy in that area during the treatment. And we're actually creating new brain waves. We're telling the brain, hey, I want you to make this frequency, and the brain will produce the same frequency like a mirror. We're training it. So it's a very powerful way to get results and to train the brain very quickly and effectively. Another thing that we use is called photobiomodulation. So these are little lights that we'll place on the brain. And when we place energy on the brain, the mitochondria, which is your energy hubs of each brain cells in your brain as well as your body, the mitochondria will have more energy to function better. So if your brain needs energy, your brain needs energy. Everyone's brain needs energy. But if a certain area needs more energy, then it can work better. Light therapy will also decrease inflammation, help the cell repair. Again, if it has more energy, it can work better. It'll heal better. It'll help with neuroplasticity. So think of all these different therapies as different ways to target and heal the brain. Photobiomodulation or light therapy can be used on the body as well. There's a lot of research that has come out over the decades and even is coming out more continually that not only can you use it to heal the body, but you can help to heal the brain. We also used what's called PEMF, which is pulsed electromagnetic frequencies. And these are little coils that we place on the brain to, again, give it another different kind of energy to help heal the brain. We also will target the autonomic nervous system. We talked about the brain and heart connection. So to train and treat the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in through your body, we'll put a small clip on the left tragus, on the left part of your ear, to stimulate vagal tone. Your vagus nerve is actually the longest nerve in the longest cranial nerve that we have, because it's going to all the different organs in your body. And it's crucial in calming the brain, regulating digestion, regulating your mood, your heart rate, and really balancing out your autonomic nervous system. So think of these as different ways to target the brain body connection to bring it some natural healing. So for some patients, we might use one of those modalities. For some, we might use 2, 3, or 4. It really depends on the patient's need. So think of neurotherapy like physical training for your brain. It can improve mental clarity, will calm overactive brain waves or increase brain waves that are too slow, help balance out the nervous system and improve brain performance. We are really targeting what we call the neurons of your brain, which is actually the cells of the brain. We are creating new blood vessels, new neurons, new communications so that your brain is commuting more efficiently from right to left, left to right into different parts of your brain. It's also reducing inflammation. It is not a quick fix, but it's really retraining your brain for better function and lasting changes. So, who can benefit from brain training? And know that it's not a specific treatment for a specific condition. However, by research, we know that certain profiles and patterns are connected to certain symptoms that we can look to see. But at the end of the day, it's specific care to your brain to optimize your brainwave patterns. We do have data and research that shows that neurotherapy is helpful for anxiety, stress, overwhelm, depression, brain fog, focus issues, what I call ADHD-like symptoms, as well as just what I call peak performance or cognitive enhancement. So I have some patients who have seen me who they're like, nothing's wrong with my brain, but I want to just improve it, just like you might want to just improve your overall health and wellness. So this is just really a short list, but the patients can come in with different variable symptoms, and through a consultation, we'll look to see, is this something that I can help you with? Whether you're looking to help heal or function better, we can look to see if this care is right for you. So Lori shares that Dr. Ginette has truly changed my life. I had frequent pain and slept poorly and suffered from PTSD and didn't sleep well without sleeping pills. Since seeing her, I no longer take sleeping pills, and my general attitude and outlook in life has completely changed for the better. It has been a few months now, and I still feel the positive effects from her treatments. I highly recommend her. Just truly a blessing to work with patients and to be able to hold space for them to heal at a profound level. So some commonly asked questions you might be asking yourself, how many sessions do I need? And that will really depend on you. It depends on what your challenge is and what are your goals. But to give you an idea, most patients will require anywhere between 20 and 30 sessions for meaningful, lasting changes. And some challenges that we have can be chronic. And so it's not a quick fix. There is some time that we need to work with the brain to really train it. But when you think about 20 to 30 sessions, it's actually really quick when you can really affect someone's brain and their health. It's amazing. We really monitor patients' progress through regular QEEGs. So the initial brain map, when we put the swimmer's cap on and measure those frequencies, we will redo that approximately every 10 sessions to see how is the brain changing. Do we need to change the protocol? Are we on the right track? We really monitor your progress so that you can get the best changes. And we want to make sure that we're really getting results, or do we need to modify that or change it? Each brain is really unique, so it's guided by the brain data that we have on your specific brain. How long is a session and how often do I need to come? Most sessions are you're here for about 45 to 60 minutes. You relax in a really comfy chair. Most patients will just listen to music and meditate, but you could be doing reading. Some will even take a nap, which I love. Healing, sleep. I say always that sleeping is healing. So if you can sleep during a neurotherapy session, even better. Not necessary, but even more fun. Consistency matters. So this is a big one. So if I want to go to the gym and I want to get changes, I can't go to the gym once a week. So infrequent training really won't move the needle. So Most patients do anywhere between 3 to 5 sessions per week. At a minimum, it's 3 times a week for us to see some changes. As progress is made, we can sometimes space those sessions out, or they might be reduced, but for most patients, they need to come 3 to 5 times a week. Some side effects, they are very rare. The most common is feeling tired after sessions. And I tell patients, just go to bed early, take a nap, and I say sleeping is healing. So it is actually a really good thing when patients come back from a session and say, wow, I was just tired, I needed to take a nap. This is some of the best side effects. They're not negative side effects, but they're side effects. And I think that is beautiful because it means the brain is healing. Some patients might feel more energized, and it depends on the protocol that we're treating the brain with. Headaches are very rare, and they may be linked to medications. So imagine as if you're taking medications, those medications are affecting your body as well as your brain. If your brain is becoming more efficient and better blood flow and it's working better, we may have to have a conversation with your prescribing doctor on possibly decreasing the medication, because the medication might be having a bigger side effect because of your brain functioning more effectively. So we might have to discuss with your prescribing doctor how we might have to start titering down that medication. But again, very rare, but comes up sometimes with patients. Is neurotherapy covered by insurance? And the short answer is yes, if you have chiropractic care. So as a licensed chiropractor, the receipts will fall under your chiropractic care. So when it comes to the cost of care, I always say that my care isn't cheap, but my care is profound and life-changing. So neurotherapy requires time, money, and effort, but it's not a quick fix, and it produces lasting changes to your brain and your body's health. Unlike symptom management, it really targets the root cause to have real improvements and long-lasting changes. We do have financial options to make this more accessible. How long does it take to see results? And that will depend on patients. But in most cases, patients will see a change within that first 10 sessions. For some, it may take up to 20, but I would say 95% of my patients, we're looking to see some changes within the first 10 sessions. Are we on the right path? If not, I may need to change how we're treating that patient's brain. We might need to change a different protocol, because I am driven by seeing results for that patient. So I'll share this last testimonial, and it's a patient. This is a mom talking about her teenage son. After trying several different conventional treatments for our son's seizures without any success, we delved into the world of alternative therapies, and we were introduced to neurotherapy and found Dr. Ginette. She was very knowledgeable, kind, and took time to explain everything to our family. We were worried that our son would experience pain from the sessions, but he did not. We noticed improvements with his seizures. They became less frequent and less intense. Having a child with an illness is very stressful for a parent. It is so important to have a team of compassionate healthcare providers to support with your child. And this was a young man who struggled with seizures, and neurofeedback was actually developed for patients who had seizures. And it can be part of the care for some patients. And so this young man had profound changes. When you can make seizures less intense and less frequent, it's a big deal for this patient, for this kid's life. So what to expect when you come to the office. So we will sit down, we will discuss your goals and your concerns. From there, we will do a non-invasive QEEG to really identify where are the issues in your particular brain, so we can personalize your care. We come up with a care-based plan based on your needs, and we can discuss whether that be neurotherapy, Do you need maybe some QNRT, which is emotional therapy, looking at releasing some subconscious traumas that we all have? We may look at adding in some adjustments to address the spine and nervous system and the stress that gets locked into the body itself. So it really depends on what you need. Your first session will then stimulate and optimize brain function in a natural way. So what I always will recommend, so we're coming to the end, is that we sit down and do a 10-minute consultation to see if is this care right for you, because I don't want to waste your time or your money, and I want to make sure that we're a good fit before you come in for an assessment. So think of a telehealth call for with Dr. Ginette is a telehealth call for your brain. We're going to talk about what you're experiencing, what you've tried so far, and if it sounds like it's something I can help with, then I'll invite you in to come to do an in-person assessment so we can do a QEEG brain map and assess your specific needs. From there, I'll do a report where we will review your brain map, walk you through a personalized care plan, and treatment options, and set out what is possible for your care. So you can scan that QR code to then find a time to do a consultation with me. But my hope for you is, if you see that after listening to this presentation that you think that I might be able to help you, I'm more than happy to see if we can help you. And if I don't think that I can help you, I will try to point you in the right direction on who might be able to help you with your specific need. I say, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. If you are not healthy, your main focus becomes on how do I get healthy, healthier, to take care of yourself, to take care of your loved ones. So I hope this was helpful, and I encourage you to take care of yourself, investing in your health, and I only wish you the best. Have a lovely day.